Hello and good day, everyone. I am very happy to welcome you all back to the kitchen table here on Freethinkradio.com, and also very pleased to say that kitchen table chats are returning to Freethink Radio every Monday at 7 o'clock p.m. Eastern Standard Time. That's freethinkradio.com. Today, I'm bringing you a conversation I had with Josh Steffler, host on the Freedom Free for All YouTube channel, broadcasting also on Shaw Cable weekly from the lovely, lovely city of Victoria, British Columbia, Canada. It's kind of like Canada's version of Hawaii, closest thing we get. And we talked a lot today about Josh's experience as a broadcaster, all kinds of good things, so please enjoy. And also, please stick around for Time for the Show, broadcasting live on freethinkradio.com tonight at 10. Check out our Twitter, our Facebook, other projects that we're working on, like the Pale Horse Zine. That is probably one of the coolest things Freethink Radio has done lately. So check us out, join our Discord. You'll find it on all of our social media platforms. And without further ado, here's Josh Steffler. And we are recording. Here with Josh Steffler from Freedom Free for All YouTube channel from Victoria, British Columbia, Canada. Thank you so much for joining me at the kitchen table, Josh.
Well, thanks for having me, Martha. Appreciate it.
Yeah, it's great to have you on, and it's great to be getting the kitchen table chats going again. So, just to start us off, as I mentioned, you're a host on the Freedom Free for All YouTube channel, but to start off, I was hoping maybe you could talk a little bit about how the channel started and also what the relationship between the Freedom Free for All channel is and the We Are Change Victoria chapter is.
Okay, sure. So the Freedom Free for All started as a side project of We Are Change Victoria. We were an activist group in town. We were filming stuff. We were rabble-rousing, and a few of us just wanted to get a little bit more serious and get on. We found these laws that said that the local cable television producer or provider had to allow locally produced content on air. So we decided to hijack that and make a television show. So we started with our YouTube channel and our YouTube show, and we put it on Shaw. So it was just a couple guys from We Are Change Victoria, which has kind of since disbanded. We used to meet every Sunday night and we used to go out and do all these actions, but the group as issues happened, it just kept dividing to smaller and smaller groups until it was kind of a core group of us left. And so we heavily focus on our TV show now, Freedom Free for All, rather than the We Are Change stuff, which was inspired by Luke Radowski, and it grew out of a 9/11 Truth meetup group that we had, and it blossomed to this television show where we've had an amazing group of friends just working together, putting together media that we weren't seeing on television, we weren't seeing in print. You could call us conspiracy theorists, but the stuff we're talking about is facts, not theories. So.
Right. Well, that's amazing that you got on Shaw Cable Access. So that still runs on the television portion of your program?
Yep, that still goes on occasionally. We do get some episodes banned, and they do send some stuff back to edit out or change things, but it is part of our platform, yeah. And I encourage other people to utilize your local cable provider. If you've got a Shaw TV channel in your city, they are required to put out locally produced content. So you have an access to television, which is, as I think everybody knows, it's kind of a brainwashing device. So we like to think of it as the antivirus out there. We're slipping it in. We're using their own weapon against them and slipping the truth in with a little bit of their lies.
Absolutely. Well, it's good stuff, and I think you're right. I don't think a lot of people realize the access that they actually have.
Mm-hmm.
So, how did you become involved or work as a broadcaster? I mean, what kind of brought you into wanting to pursue that kind of activism or that kind of media?
Well, started we started our channel almost 6 years ago, but I was making YouTube videos before that, and it was just I was sick and tired of seeing the same news stories no matter where I looked. It was all the same guys with just different news anchors telling me the same lies, the same malarkey. It was the same opinions. And we just wanted some actual diversity, and we wanted to get the word out. At first, I thought, well, if the people just knew the truth, there would be an uprising. And I've since come past that because I have learned that often, way too often, people will stumble across the truth and then pick themselves up and live in their blissful ignorance. And that's not everybody, because along our journey, we have met so many good people and good friends that didn't know about the information that we were giving until we were out there giving it. We've talked about the 9/11 deception, the war on terror. We've talked about geoengineering. We talk about climate change and the hysteria that goes on with that. And we've met some amazing experts in their own areas and made some good friendships and connections with them. Generally, people that like freedom and want less tyrannical rules over their life kind of gravitate towards us. So
Yeah, that must be the most encouraging aspect of it is making those new connections and like you
yeah,
said, meeting people that are kind of willing to get in the trenches with you, so to speak.
yeah, yeah. It's nice to know that you're not alone, and that's one of the main reasons we do what we do. Is we don't often make friends in areas of like political power or influence, but we do make friends in people that are questing for truth or concerned about mainstream media narratives. And so it's kind of like a life raft out there. The ship's sinking, and we're throwing out these life rafts and these life preservers, and the people that want to grab them will grab on, and we'll try to save them.
Well, do you find that there's been kind of a resurgence of interest in alternative media lately, like ever since things like, I guess, the Trump election in the States and the kind of rise of fake news and popular,
I
consciousness?
Yeah, I think there has been, especially with the new, seems like the new media narrative, or like the new mainstream media narrative, that alternative media is bad. It's full of quacks and crackpot conspiracy theorists and the alt-right Nazis and white supremacists and Islamophobes and homophobes and transphobes and all the phobes and
All the
all the
phobes.
ists. And so people, I think, are sick and tired of being labeled as these things when they're seeing truths, but then are being told straight to their face that that's not the truth, that's a lie, here's the truth. And the truth that they're told by those media organizations is actually a lie. So there is this resurgence because more and more people are having access to the internet. And when you start to try to ban people and ban things, you interest people because they're interested.
Absolutely.
Humans are interested in things we're not allowed to have, right? So
Absolutely. It's such a fundamental principle, and it seems like it's so easily forgotten when the censors get kind of, get excited and start banning everything. It seems so simple to just realize that all you're doing is making something more interesting, more taboo, more sought after, but it never seems to sink in.
No, and they work overtime to censor anything that goes against their narrative, and that you see that now with all the phobes and the ists that they label people as. If you're not part of the left narrative, and it seems to be getting farther and farther left, you are branded as this Nazi, this enemy, this evil that's to be defeated, and it's getting kind of concerning out there that they're working so hard to label people. Like, I'm clearly not a white supremacist or a Nazi or a transphobe or a homophobe. I have, friends of all genders, and well, maybe not all genders.
There's a lot, so you need a lot of friends.
Yeah, but I have friends of, both sides, and some friends that are left-wing, but even some of my older friends that are left-wing are becoming more and more radicalized and angry at me for some of the things that I say. And I don't think I've changed my narrative. I haven't changed the way I deliver my information, but they're getting angry. And I'm finding even some of my old friends that I've gone to school with are calling me a Nazi, and that I have bigoted opinions. And it's like I try to challenge them and say, well, what's making me a Nazi? Well, you're saying, that these irregular migrants shouldn't be coming. First off, they're not irregular migrants if they're crossing the border illegally. And I'm not against people coming to Canada. I just come here legally.
Yeah, well, I can say, I think with 100% certainty that you're not alone in feeling like that. I think a lot of people, especially, I'm just going to kind of assume, that we're kind of like a similar generation. And I think a lot of people are in that exact boat, finding that they don't feel like their principles have really changed, or their approach, or their feelings, and yet suddenly they're feeling more and more isolated, you're definitely, I think that's common to people all over the place right now.
Yeah, it's becoming a problem, and the division is now part of the narrative. I mean, I remember having friends that would deride George Bush back when he was George Bush Jr., when he was the president, when he said, you're either with us or you're
against
with the terrorists.
Yeah.
And that narrative has kind of switched over to the left wing, and it seems like now you're either with all 786 genders, or you're a
Nazi.
transphobic monster that is a Nazi and probably reincarnated Hitler.
Yeah, it's a very kind of like subtle and yet abrupt shift that I've been mulling over in my head for, I swear, years now, and I still can't quite figure out why or exactly when it happened. But
well, I do blame the regular media, like the mainstream media. They are amping this up, and no matter what you're listening to, if it's talk radio or sports radio or music radio in town, they all are delivering the same narrative of alt-right. Even the radio stations that play music, they give these 5-minute news blurbs about alt-right bigots or Islamophobes are protesting today. And so they build this narrative, and it becomes normalized to just see Nazis everywhere when we defeated the Nazis. And more, the people that say that they're against Nazis are the ones that are actually behaving like the old school brown shirts that Hitler employed.
Yeah, it's clown world.
Yeah,
but
it really is.
I was gonna save this for a bit later on, but we kind of had like a pretty good segue into it there. So with what you were saying, like this kind of escalating opposition to anyone that doesn't toe a very specific line, and all the phobes getting thrown around, you recently were speaking with Jen Smith.
Yeah.
Who tried, I guess, I don't know if you could say she had a talk in Victoria, tried to have a talk in Victoria.
Yeah, he goes by him. He's
Okay,
the
sorry.
dude. And so what happens is, this is the clown world of what we live in, right? But this is the ridiculous nature. So I and a few other people walked Jen into the area because, there's all these protesters. And so a few of my TV show people, we showed up to film. We had permission to film if things got out of hand.
Right.
And it was just crazy because Jen identifies as a transgender person.
Okay.
But doesn't go along with the transgender narrative. He knows, or he believes, it's hard to navigate this because of the crazy hate speech laws and stuff that are getting thrown around, that I don't want to get arrested in the middle of the night by the Rainbow Police. So,
no, neither do I, so I understand. And neither does anyone. I mean, that's the shittiest thing about this, though, is that the problem is neither, I think, anyway, my feeling, is that, nor does anyone want to cause hurt to anyone, really, by misspeaking. But,
no.
I mean, you have to kind of allow people to speak freely, on the other hand, too, and give some benefit of the doubt to your conversation partner that, misspoken words are not this, not necessarily a sign of cruel intentions.
Non-violent.
Yeah, non-violence, and not even meant to be hurtful. And but anyway, we will do our best and let everyone know that there are no bad intentions here.
So we were talking with Jen, and he is a interesting person. He's transgender who believes that men cannot be women and women cannot be men, and you can identify however you want, but biology is a thing. And this trans activism is specifically targeting children.
Right.
And you can see that in the schools, where all of a sudden we have an explosion of the amount of children in schools that are now identifying as transgender.
Yeah.
And it's a confusing time for them. It's a very hard time for them, and to be messing around with it, with this SOGI 1-2-3 program that's in our schools, is influencing the minds of confused and highly impressionable children when they paint it as an anti-bullying program. But you can have a really simple anti-bullying program without LGBT propaganda in it, and all it has to be is don't bully anyone for any reasons, and have the school punish bullies. But I'm a father with children in school, and I have seen firsthand that the schools protect the bullies. And when the children, my children, have stood up to bullies, and I've been dragged into the office for having my children stand up against the bullies and fight back.
Yeah.
And they're deemed just as, if not more guilty than the bullier, because they took care of themselves. So these people that are saying they're all for anti-LGBT, or that they're for tolerance and love for LGBT people, are targeting Jen, who's transgender, because he doesn't go along with their very far left narrative, and he believes that this stuff is harming women, harming children, and he has every right to express these things. They're not hatred. He doesn't hate transgender people. He doesn't want violence on them. He just wants parents to know that there is quite an insidious program in school that is messing with the minds of children. Like, obviously, we can see that there's something going on, and it's not fair to a kindergarten kid who says something to his teacher offhand, and now the teacher thinks that this kid is transgender. They're never going to tell the parents, because that's part of their goal, is that you keep it safe from the parents, because the parents are automatically deemed a bad guy, the bad person in the situation, and they work to undermine the parental rights and push this kid along as a transgender even if he's not or she's not. It's just they're confused about something.
Yeah,
it's... So it was insane over there. They shouted, they yelled, they screamed, they pulled the fire alarm. They behaved like children. And it's, again, this narrative of, I believe in free speech, but not hate speech. And they call this hate speech when it's not hate speech to oppose a program in schools. It's not hate speech to question what someone deems propaganda. And he's never called for violence against people. He's never called for hatred against people. But what he said is powerful, and it has the ability to change people's minds. And that is why they're working overtime to shut Jen down, because Jen is effective and powerful in his words, and they can't have that.
Yeah, from what I saw of your interview with Jen, he was like beyond reasonable, very compassionate, and like you said, his objection is mainly to policy. So the idea that that can be construed as hate speech is quite upsetting.
The curious or interesting thing about the whole event that went down in Oak Bay was that it was heavily run, like the protest was heavily run and influenced by a political party, the NDP in particular. So you had Ryan Painter, who is a school board district elected trustee, and he worked on NDP campaigns. He's an NDP volunteer. You had Randall Garrison, who is the NDP federal elected politician for the area. He was there. You had Morgane Ogre, or O'Shea.
Yeah.
I always mispronounce that person's name. You had Morgane there, and that's the vice president of the NDP. You had Rob Fleming, who's an NDP MLA. You had a few city councillors who are shadow NDP city councillors. So it seems to be this very, it's like the socialist caucus from the NDP that's working on this overtime. And it's interesting why they're doing this and who's involved. Don't exactly know why, although it's obvious that Morgane is a transgender person. I don't know how to describe, but Morgane is a transgender, and the NDP is rapidly adopting this mantra that you're either with the transgenders or you're a transphobe. You hate transgenders. And we have to, as a society, we have to move past this idea that if you don't agree with me, you hate me. And I don't hate anybody, but I disagree with a lot of people. Actually, there's probably 2 or 3 individuals that I hate, but that's the actions that they've done upon me. And, you know, this idea that, oh, well, you're either with me or you're an enemy is destroying our communities, our families, our neighborhoods. You can't talk reasonably about politics if you seem to be anywhere like center right or further right. You have to be quite careful about who you discuss politics and your beliefs with, because you tell the wrong person that you're against a certain agenda or you're against a certain platform, and you're quickly labeled one of the phobes or one of the ists, and it goes around your community. I mean, I've had some of my wife's friends message her telling her that I'm a Nazi or that I'm a
oh my god, oh no,
homophobe. And,
oh jeez.
Yeah, I have a good wife, and we talk about these things often. But
honey, are you going to Nazi meetings again?
But it's sad that this is how people are behaving, and it's not right. It's not the way Canada or the Western world was supposed to work. I mean, you're allowed to be a conservative, you're allowed to be a liberal, you're allowed to be a a socialist or a libertarian, and just because you are and hold those beliefs does not make you enemies of your neighbors or your friends and
or your
it's just
family. Yeah, it's crazy. I know just what you mean. It seems like everyone has lost the ability to have like a healthy argument. And I mean, I don't know. I guess you know, different social circles and families are all different, but you know, you should be able to like the typical Thanksgiving dinner example. Like that shouldn't be breaking up families. It should be.
well, and you shouldn't also have to like gingerly walk around subjects and talk about boring things that are inane
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
banal. Like we live in a very political world, and there's a lot of interesting things going on in our society and our culture is changing rapidly, and you need to be able to discuss these things to know how to deal with them, how to coexist, how to belong. And it just seems like if you're not willing to move along with this rapid far left regressive agenda, or they would call it a progressive agenda, then this isn't the world for you anymore. And that's not right. That's not,
no,
not the
but
way we should be going.
And it is becoming increasingly polarized. I actually just came across a little blurb in an article the other day about apparently there's a recent survey of dating sites, and people under 30 put more emphasis on politically compatible matches than sexually compatible matches. So
yeah,
that's take from that what you will, I guess. But definitely, it's weird because we are becoming almost increasingly preoccupied with politics and less able to talk to anybody about it. It's a bad situation.
it is. It really is a bad situation, and that's kind of why we do what we do. I'm kind of the front man because I don't want to like say that I'm so courageous and brave, but in a time like this, it does take courage to put your face out there and say some of the things that I do because
Absolutely.
Of the labeling. Oh, you're a Nazi. Oh, you're a bigot. Oh, you're a homophobe. And I'm not any of those things, but
Yeah.
I've been called those. I've had my work phoned
Oh,
telling
God.
me they're being a white supremacist. I've had I get hate mail, and it only strengthens my resolve.
Yeah, well, it's fine because I was going
Not
to...
everybody can do it.
No, definitely not. But I was going to ask you because when I was getting ready to talk with you today, of course, I Googled, you know, the channel and everything, and I discovered that you do have a few dedicated hate followers on the internet. So, yeah, and so I wanted to ask you, like, how do you deal with stuff like that?
Like how do I deal with the stress of it all?
Yeah, the stress of it. I mean, I guess, do you bother to take the time to, you know, respond to any of these people and try to set the record straight, or?
Sometimes I do, but a lot of times the people are so involved in ideology that you cannot reach them. I've got this one hater that didn't even know who I was or who any of my crew was, but we had hosted this speaker, a lawyer. He's controversial. We hosted this lawyer about free speech. His name was Doug Christie, and he's notorious in Canada. And so they decided, this person, Zoe Blunt, decided that means I'm a Nazi, and has done everything in her power to slander and libel me. She ended up stealing my website. For some strange reason, my political website the host didn't take my credit card. And so I was thinking, okay, my payment's gone through. No, it didn't. It lapsed. And she bought it and now uses it to direct people to her website, where she has this whole list of lies about us. Says that I went to the Women's March to hate on women, which I didn't. We went there to interview people. I have interviews with Elizabeth May, and we were just there to document it. I make a TV show, so that's what we were doing. But yeah, she labels us Nazis and white supremacists and all sorts of things. But I mean, you can let it get to you, or you can not let it get to you. And I have an ability to let things just slide off my back. She's going to say, and people are going to say things about me that just aren't true. And I came to realize that I don't actually own my reputation. It's just what people think. So if I've come across people in the community where they're like, oh, you're that Nazi, I know, well, straight up, you've bought propaganda, so it'll be really hard to reach you. And I give people a little bit of time, but I don't waste my time. If people are reasonable and willing to sit and listen and talk, then I'm down. But if you're just going to sit there and call me names and say, no, you're a Nazi, no, you're a Nazi, then why are either of us wasting our time? Number one, you believe that you're fighting or talking to a Nazi, and I'm talking to a brick wall where I'm not going to get through to you. So
right, yeah. Well, I think that's a pretty zen approach, I would say. You know, just to realize that you have to, you know, it's out of your control at some point. Like you said, you unfortunately don't own your reputation, and you just have to act out your principles, and that's all you can do at a certain point.
Oftentimes I can ask people, like, what specifically have I done that makes you think I'm a white supremacist or a Nazi or a bigot or a homophobe? And oftentimes they have no idea. They're like, well, I read about it on this website. Oh, well, I could show you other websites. No, I've read about you already. I was told about you.
Yeah.
Okay. You were told the wrong information, so. Yeah. And I get out in nature. My wife and I go for a lot of forest walks. Every now and then it does start to get to me, and I have to take a break off of social media and everything. And usually a couple of days clears the head, go to the forest or the beach. I'm lucky enough that living on Vancouver Island, we have wonderful beaches, and we've got deep, dark rainforest.
So beautiful.
Incredible hiking. I can go to mountains. I can go to caves. I can go to the beach. I can go to, I can go anywhere.
It reminds me of like living in like dinosaur times, like out in some of the forests out on the island. Yeah, it's pretty spectacular.
You get out to Renfrew area and Ucluelet, and it's lovely.
Yeah, and you need that. I think that's like a good kind of healthy way to deal. You got to unplug sometimes. Nobody can be kind of 24/7 dealing with the constant onslaught of internet.
Yeah. And I heavily invest time in my family and make sure I take care of my kids and my wife, and maintain and foster those relationships so that it's a good life off of the internet. Right?
Yeah. Well, it's
games, painting, we talk, we do all sorts of things too.
Nice. Well, that's the most important thing.
Yeah. Because in my travels and my investigations and stuff, you come across very dark and very dangerous things. Some of the most horrible things I've heard about and interviewed people on is like child abuse. I've been involved with the creep catchers, and it's
that's
dark stuff.
That's some heavy shit. That's soul crushing kind of stuff.
It really is. I was actually interviewing one of the Victoria creep catchers when he got a call that one of the people that have been messaging him wanted to meet up. So we went along and I filmed it, and after reading the chat logs and stuff, it was horrific. And now the guy wasn't 100% mentally there. People can say that he was somewhat disabled, but he knew what he was doing was wrong, and he made sure to constantly tell who he thought he was talking to, a 13-year-old boy, to not tell his parents and not tell anyone. He didn't want to get in trouble. And he was joking that he was old enough to be his dad, and he hopes that doesn't gross him out.
Oh, God.
And that's some of the more tame stuff that you see in those creep catcher chat logs and stuff. And,
yeah, those guys, I imagine, need to unplug every now and again and just go out to the ocean and, like, you know, detoxify, basically.
A lot of them don't last long doing it. There's a lot of the creep catchers that started out back when it was like at its heyday, and a lot of them now can't do it anymore because they almost have PTSD from the damage, or it was corrupting them to the point where they were going to result in using violence against these people. And while I believe it probably is justified, the law would wreck your life.
Absolutely.
Even though these people think that they're meeting up with children. They think that they're planning on having sex with these 13-year-old kids, and there's nothing wrong with that. So do they deserve the violence that some people would use upon them? I would argue yes.
Yeah, there's a strong argument for yes. Absolutely. Yeah. But yeah, I can understand why.
Come down on the person that did the violence rather than the person who's trying to capture children and rob innocents. And
well, one of the most upsetting parts of your interview with the creep catchers was when they were saying, you know, like they are constantly asking for police assistance, police support, police investigations, and for some reason, probably lots of red tape involved, I'm guessing, but for whatever reason, they can't seem to make a partnership happen.
Yeah, it's sad.
And that's really sad.
They're really the most vulnerable. And I think it plays into the heavy sexualization of our culture that we're seeing, like this, the transgender stuff, the sexualization of children, the pushing of like the gay and the sex lifestyle of like children in grade 5 and 6.
Yeah.
It plays into that narrative where I don't want to see it happen, but it seems like we're heading in this direction where children are going to become sexual beings that are allowed to consent, and I don't think that's true. I don't think that's right. I think it's wrong.
Yeah. Well, it's I agree that we've become kind of more hypersexualized in culture in a lot of ways, and I think it has. I don't know if this was an intentional outcome of the gay rights movement, but it seems like at some point your identity has become conflated with your sexuality, where your sexuality is now the most defining aspect of your personality. Yeah, and that I think.
I don't know if that actually came from the whole gay rights thing, or if there were like these sex activists that kind of hijacked and moved the agenda along with them, because I know a lot of gay men and they aren't promiscuous, they aren't they live normal lives, they just happen to love men, they're not in the streets parading some
in bondage gear.
Yeah, we went to the gay pride once because, you know, as a libertarian, I think, you know, I believe in anybody being married. It's not the government's job to tell you who you can and can't marry. But we left because there was a dude. I went there with my kids. They were 2 and 6 and 7, I believe. And there was this man walking down the street, helicoptering his penis.
Oh my goodness.
It's like, this is not pride, this is degeneracy. And
yeah. Whereas, you know, if that guy had done that, say, in the park when your kids were around, that probably would have been some kind of public lewdness exposure charge, I'm guessing? Like,
So, I mean, I'm all for people, like, it's not even gay rights, it's just rights. People should be treated equally and fairly, regardless of if you're gay, straight, black, white, transgender or not. But using identity politics to say that we need gay rights or women's rights or trans rights means that those are super rights over the rights of everybody else. And it's just, we all are supposed to be human. We're all supposed to be the human race, and we're all supposed to have the same rights, the same equality across the board. So we as a family don't go to the pride parades anymore. And I've been derided by friends for not going and saying that I am a homophobe because I don't go. And it's like, I don't want to see the display of sexuality in the streets. I agree that you should have the same rights as everyone else. I'm on board with that. I'm not on board with bondage dudes or dildos walking down the streets or simulated sex acts in the streets. I mean, we live in a hypersexualized world already, and I just want to maintain my children's, innocence and youth, because they're only kids once.
Yeah,
they
exactly.
All those experiences when they're an adult. They don't need it while they're 7 and 8 years old. And
I can totally understand that. But I wanted to ask. We're about 3/4 of an hour in. There's a couple other things I wanted to ask you about before we wrap up. So I feel like I kind of have to ask, since you've been doing this for so many years now. What is the craziest encounter that you've had, either doing like on the ground filming or even interviews you've had? Like, what has been the kind of most over the top thing you've witnessed?
It's got to be the antics of these left-wing protesters. So probably the craziest thing I've ever seen and done is we were at this community well. It's the last public well in Victoria. And there was an anarchist book fair going on inside this public rental hall down the road or across the field. And my friend, former co-host and one of the co-founders of Weird Change, went in there, and somebody recognized him and shouted out that he was a white supremacist and a member of the some culture guard or something, some white supremacist thing. Right. And they booted him. So he came out. He looked shell-shocked. I was there with my family. And at this well, it's like one of the last places you can get water off of the municipal water system, which is heavily chlorinated, actually chloramine. So we used to call it freedom water. So we were there. And then he comes out, and he was looking shell-shocked. He was talking to me. He was so glad to see me. And out of this thing, beelining towards him, come two small but very angry, aggressive-looking women, and behind them about 3 or 4 really weak-looking males. They tried to surround him and tell him that he had to go. You have to get off this property. You're a white supremacist. You need to go.
Holy crap.
To say, they didn't know that he was recording the whole thing in his pocket. So he turned his camera on. We got the whole thing on film. We don't have video footage, but audio.
Nice.
And in it, they're yelling at me. I'm yelling at them. I tell them to, kick rocks. You can get the fuck out of here. You say you're anarchist, but you come here and try to kick a guy off a park because you rented a hall. You're anti-capitalist, yet you're running a capitalist business in there. You guys are just ridiculous. And they kept nattering at him and me, saying, you have to go. You all have to go. You're all white supremacists. And then at the end of the video, when Greg tells them, I've been recording this whole thing, they're like, whoa, I'm not comfortable with this. I'm not comfortable. Well, yeah, of course, because now you guys got caught. Your behavior's on film. We caught you. And the one lady says, well, I never said that you were a white supremacist. there might have been someone on there with a voice that sounds similar to me, but I would never use that kind of language. And
oh God.
It was an ongoing thing where we were working. They said that we could talk to the collective about it. So we messaged them and tried to talk to them. They wouldn't talk to us. So we talked to the Hull rental people, and they said that it was none of their business, not their problem. And then they asked us to not come back. So it was just insane that these anarchists came out acting like jackbooted thugs to try to kick a guy off a public park. And they got caught. They had no idea that my friend had allies outside. They came out to bully and slander him and threaten him, and I kind of saved the day for him. So that's probably one of the craziest things we've ever seen or had done. And then I guess second would be the recent Jen Smith event that we went to, where it was lunacy. The protesters assaulted a police officer. We got it on film through a little bit of investigative journalism, where the police told us that they were told to stand down and they were told to let the event happen, or the event get shut down. I recorded a phone conversation with the mayor of Oak Bay, where he admitted that, we're not going to let Jen have another event because of public safety, and that he admits that they behaved badly, but they're not going to stop that from happening again. So,
wow,
it's been an adventure.
Yeah, but Jen is still giving talks and may come back to Victoria in a more like undercover fashion, from what I understood. That's good.
He's coming back June 2nd.
Good.
The venue's not going to get announced until a couple hours before, because of the organized mob that they quickly rallied. They had like 2 weeks to rally this hate mob and whip up the hate frenzy. So they're not going to get that this time. Right.
Well, hopefully everything can proceed. Excuse me, and everything, everyone, has safe journeys and everything.
I hope so.
Yeah.
It's just free speech.
Yeah, it's something that should be so simple. And something that used to be kind of like one of the champion causes of the left wing, it seems. Like, anti-censorship.
Well, the free speech kind of movement kind of was born on the Berkeley campus, and now the Berkeley campus is the site of so many ridiculous protests and violent Antifa mobs that it's kind of become the antithesis of what it used to be.
Yeah.
I got on my show about this satanic inversion, where it's the exact opposite, and it's kind of what the devil does. Whether you believe in the devil or not, the elites believe, and those guys are running the show. They use that sort of satanic inversion where up is down, or in 1984, it's kind of the Orwellian newspeak, where just everything is the opposite. It is clown world, where the left used to be this bastion for liberty and freedom and free speech, and they are now the ones saying that nobody should be allowed to have an opinion but us.
Yeah. It's almost sometimes, I don't know, this might be like an oversimplification, but, it could just come down to that kind of old saying, like, once you're in power, it's corrupting and you become the kind of authoritarian that you used to oppose. But, I mean, do you find, I don't know, I find this maybe, and it's just because I'm not quite as in tune, but I find it hard to tell if there's kind of a turn of the tides in the, what people kind of call the culture war. Like, it kind of seemed for a while that with Trump winning, with kind of Jordan Peterson gaining this like huge worldwide notoriety with a very anti-progressivism message that maybe, the kind of culture, popular opinion was shifting, but now I'm not so sure anymore.
Well, it did seem like we were winning. It seemed like the culture war had been won. You'd see right-wing, and not even far right-wing, but just right-wing commentators and people on YouTube with thousands, millions of followers, people that were able to articulate arguments and counter far-left narratives very easily, rapidly became censored and shut down by YouTube, Google, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. It's almost like there's a new technocracy forming, and I understand that all of those places are private businesses, but they're also monopolies and culture shapers. And when you censor those people for not even breaking the rules, like Milo Yiannopoulos, or not Yiannopoulos, who's about Gavin McInnes, has been heavily censored, kicked off Facebook, YouTube. Like, they've essentially cut him off from that what is almost like a new public commons. While it is private, and it's fair, it's a fair argument that it's a private company, but it's also a monopoly. And
the only encouraging thing to come out of the Gavin situation is it seems like his lawsuit against the SPLC is going well. So hopefully he just utterly destroys them.
Well, the SPLC it's almost a hate group itself. It's definitely a left-wing activist group, because you never see them calling out Antifa. You see them heavily focused, and it seems to be the narrative right now that there's alt-right Nazis everywhere, and
I mean, the idea that they had any shred of credibility left after classifying Ayaan Hirsi Ali as some kind of hate figure or racist is just like the most absurd. It's absurd. Like, anyway, that's a whole other tangent, but
it is. But we got to keep slogging on, and I'll be there until they drag me off to the gulag, and hopefully along the way I'll have made some friends, so I won't be alone in that work camp.
In the work camp. So you'll have someone to bum smokes off of, and but
I mean, I joke, but it is getting to be that scary where people are going to be going to prison, or maybe even worse, as this hyper rhetorical narrative really ramps up and their jackboot thuggery really starts to gain power. I never would have thought I'd live to see the day where saying that a man can't be pregnant and have babies was considered a hate crime, or that women.
That drives me nuts, because it's like, where are you radical feminists? Like, the one.
They've actually named. There are feminists that are out there, and they're crazy too. They call them TERFs. Which trans exclusionary radical feminists. And I mean, some of them are lunatics as well, but there are some feminists out there that are like, whoa, men can't be women.
Like, hello, ladies, you've been pioneering an entire civil rights movement on the premise that women are fundamentally different and therefore have been treated differently. Like, what are you thinking? You can't let that go. Like, that's a cornerstone of your,
Well, and they're very different creatures. There are benefits, and women can do things that men can't do, and men can do things that women can't do. And it's okay that we're different. It's okay that we have these biological and sociological differences, and it's it's almost biological that women are more nurturing and men are more logical, and there are differences to the norm, but it shouldn't be a hate crime to talk about things, and it shouldn't be. It seems like it's almost like an attack on women, where you've got men or biological men that are winning all of these women's sporting events. You've got young girls in school that are concerned that there are boys in their change rooms.
Yeah.
You've got we want to protect young women from sexual assault and sexual aggression, and yet we're letting boys into the change rooms.
Yeah, well, I think with the in the sports area, there may end up being some real kind of pushback or a change of thought. Not just because it's an area where the biological realities become so stark, but also Rogan. I mean, love him or hate him, he has a huge audience, and he's been very persistent about saying, like, this is just not fair, guys. Like, this is just not the way it's supposed to work.
Yeah. Yeah, you should not have biological men punching biological women in any way, shape, or form. It's not going to be a fair fight, especially when these are like highly trained athletes. It's not like we're talking about some really big girl fighting a wimpy guy or some wimpy guy fighting a big girl. You've got men that are weightlifting and training to fight.
Yeah.
Fighting women. That's not right. And you see in some of them that the women get heavily damaged. Broke some girl. One of the transgender fighters broke a girl's face, like fractured her orbital socket. That's crazy.
Yeah. It's just it's crazy. I think that's probably actually the best word for it. But
and the sad thing is that now that you've got some girls speaking up about it, you immediately have the LGBT community condemn them as bigots and hateful people for saying that it's not fair that these boys are taking their spots. I watched this mini interview with this young girl who was at the top of her game. She'd been training for track and field her entire school career, and she was planning on getting a scholarship to go to university on this stuff. And in the beginning of high school, these two transgender boys, or what they say are transgender women, these two boys that say they're girls, joined the track and field and just started dominating. And all of these girls, they couldn't even compete. These guys were like 10 seconds faster than them, and no matter how hard they trained or how much they trained, they just couldn't compete because there's a biological difference there.
Yeah.
And the whole school was condemning these girls for complaining about it as they're transphobic, they're bigots, they're all these things, when she's trying to say that these are men or these are boys taking away opportunities for girls, and we're supposed to create more opportunities for girls.
Exactly. Yeah, it's
clown world. It is clown world for sure.
Yeah, Hong Kong. Yeah, it is. It's totally unfair. I mean, putting aside the fact that, you know, these young athletes can have serious stakes. You know, like there can be scholarships involved. There's all kinds of advancements that they're missing out on, and I mean, not to mention the fact that the amount of training and dedication that goes into being an athlete at that level, to have it kind of unfairly, you know, undermined is is really not right. And I mean that. That's perfect. That's perfect.
Yeah.
But so what's on the calendar for Freedom Free for All for the next month or over the summer? Any plans?
Well, we are in the midst of hopefully finding a new studio. studio is on some private property that's getting redeveloped, so we've got some things on the go there. We do have a giant mobile truck. It's this 911 Truth truck with video screens and stuff, so we may ramp that up and have a mobile studio, which would be really cool.
Yeah.
We got Jordan Maxwell coming on our show next week, next Tuesday. And if you haven't heard of Jordan Maxwell, you're missing out. He's quite the expert on occult symbology, and he's an amazing man to talk to. So we've got him coming. Then we've also got Dr. Tim Ball coming back on to talk about climate change. We're lucky enough that he is a world-famous climatologist and activist out there, and he lives in Victoria. We get the benefit of having him come into our studio, and he is a world-class guest that the friendship that I've blossomed with him through interviews and stuff is incredible. I love the man. He actually was the guy that saved me from the climate change hysteria because I bought into it. I was concerned. I was bamboozled.
Right.
And we've probably got Jen Smith and his event coming up in a week or two, maybe this coming up next week.
Yeah.
And Jen on the show again. Long list of
good guests lined up.
World quality guests, and it's a real big treat for me because I got into this before being in the show and doing the show. I cut my teeth listening to podcasts of Jordan Maxwell, listening to people like Dr. Tim Ball, and now I get to, commingle with them and have them on the show. It's just a little bit of a fanboy kind of thing to be able to hang with these guys and talk to them, and I appreciate what they do, and it's good stuff.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's a really good lineup, and it's like you said, and it's awesome to be able to not just have great conversations with the people whose ideas you admire, but also to be able to share them and get them out, and that's awesome. Good stuff. Well, thank you very much, Josh. I guess we'll wrap it up there. I think that was a good chat. I really appreciate you coming on. And
no worries. I had a good time. It was excellent. I'm glad you reached out, and I definitely enjoy talking to people, so I appreciate the opportunity. Can I give a plug for my show?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Any other Victoria projects or channels or collaborators, plug it all.
Yeah, okay, sure. So you can find me on my YouTube channel, Freedom Free for All. We do a live show every Tuesday night at 7:30 p.m. Pacific, and our Facebook page is Freedom Free for All. We put up investigative reports, our videos, funny memes, interesting news articles. We keep it locked down on our local scene. We're pretty heavily involved in the local politics and the local events. And we've got the Jen Smith event coming up June 2nd. And that's it. freedomfreeforall.com if you want to donate to the cause. We don't do it to make money. We do it because there's nobody else out there doing what we do. And we just love truth and freedom and liberty, and want to be the voice out there. So
and it's important to support just people, independent folks doing local stuff. I mean, that's huge. So and
one of the best ways to support us too is I know a lot of people don't have cash these days, or everybody's just barely getting by. One of the best ways to help us is by sharing our videos and subscribing and hitting that notification bell, because the shadow banning is real, and it goes a long way to help fight the algorithm when people are still sharing our stuff and sending it to their friends and talking about it. So find us online, hit subscribe, share some videos. We've got 5 years of content on our YouTube channel, and there's something there for everybody.
Oh, definitely. You actually, that was one of the things when I was getting ready to talk to you. I was, trying to pick out guests and topics because you've got, like we were saying, there's politics, there's like disclosure and fringe topics. There is like interviews with academics, political activists. You got like your creep catchers and other YouTubers and broadcasters. So yeah, there's definitely a good assortment there. And yeah, and maybe down the road it'd be great to have you back for an update. We didn't really get to gripe too much about Victoria, so maybe I might have to have you back on for that.
I would love the opportunity.
All right, awesome. Well, we'll wrap it up there. Thanks very much, Josh.
Okay, thanks, Martha. Take care.
Cheers.